August 12, 1991. Monument Valley, Utah. The Unforgiven production was in the middle of filming one of the most complex gunfight scenes ever attempted when 4-year-old Tommy Rodriguez wandered away from his family's camping site and appeared on the edge of the movie set, crying and completely lost in the vast desert landscape. What happened next would become one of the most powerful demonstrations of character in Hollywood history, as Clint Eastwood proved that some things are more important than million-dollar movie productions, and that real toughness means protecting the most vulnerable when they need protection most. The Rodriguez family had been camping about 2 miles from the film location, part of an extended family reunion in the area. Tommy had been playing with his cousins near their campsite when he chased a butterfly and wandered farther than he realized into the maze of red rock formations that made Monument Valley famous. Tommy was a curious little boy who loved exploring, recalled his mother, Maria Rodriguez, years later. But he had never been in desert country before, and he didn't understand how easy it was to get lost when everything looks the same. The Unforgiven crew had been preparing for 3 days to film a pivotal gunfight scene that required precise coordination between actors, stunt coordinators, special effects teams, and animal wranglers. Over 80 cast and crew members were involved, and the production had been delayed twice due to weather. "We were burning about $50,000 every hour we weren't filming," recalled producer David Valdez. The pressure to complete the scene was enormous, especially since we were already behind schedule. Clint was in full costume and makeup, completely focused on directing one of the most challenging scenes of his career, when assistant director Scott Eastwood noticed something that made him immediately alert his father. "Dad," Scott said quietly, "there's a little kid over by the rocks and he's crying." Clint looked toward the red rock formation about 100 yards from where they were filming and saw Tommy Rodriguez, tiny against the massive landscape, clearly frightened and alone. Without hesitation, Clint called out in his unmistakable voice, "Cut! Everyone hold positions. We've got a situation." What Clint did next shocked everyone on set, recalled actor Gene Hackman, who was playing Little Bill Daggett. He didn't send someone else to check on the child. He didn't ask an assistant to handle it. He walked directly toward that little boy himself. Clint approached Tommy slowly, understanding that a strange man in Western costume and makeup might frighten a lost child even more. "Hey there, partner," Clint said softly, kneeling down to Tommy's eye level. "What's your name?" Tommy looked up at this tall stranger with tears streaming down his face. "Tommy, I can't find my mama." "Well, Tommy, my name is Clint, and I'm going to help you find your mama. But first, are you hurt anywhere?" Tommy shook his head, but continued crying. "Are you thirsty? It's pretty hot out here." Tommy nodded, and Clint immediately called for water and snacks from the craft services tent. What happened next would amaze everyone watching. Instead of simply comforting Tommy until someone else could locate his parents, Clint picked up the boy and carried him to his director's chair, the most important seat on any movie set. "Tommy," Clint said, settling the child on his lap, "I want you to be my special assistant while we find your family. Can you help me direct this movie?" Through his tears, Tommy nodded eagerly. "This movie is called Unforgiven, and we're filming cowboys. Do you like cowboys?" "Yes," Tommy whispered, clearly fascinated despite his fear. For the next 30 minutes, while the entire production waited and location managers contacted local authorities to help find Tommy's family, Clint explained filmmaking to a 4-year-old boy as if teaching him was the most important job he had ever undertaken. "See those cameras over there, Tommy? They're taking pictures that move, so people can watch our cowboy story later. And those horses? They're real cowboys' horses, just like in the old days." Tommy's fear began to fade as Clint's gentle voice and genuine interest in making him feel safe took effect. "Mr. Clint, are you a real cowboy?" Tommy asked. "Well, I play cowboys in movies, but the real cowboys were the people who lived out here a long time ago, when this land was wild and free." But Clint's care for Tommy went far beyond simply keeping him occupied. When craft services brought water and snacks, Clint made sure Tommy ate properly and stayed hydrated in the desert heat. When Tommy said he was scared, Clint told him stories about brave cowboys who protected people, making sure Tommy understood that he was safe now. "Watching Clint with that little boy was incredible," recalled actress Frances Fisher. Here was this legendary tough guy, completely focused on making sure a scared child felt protected and cared for. The most remarkable moment came when Tommy, Feeling safe enough to be curious, asked Clint if he could meet the horses. Without hesitation, Clint carried Tommy to where the trained horses were resting and spent 20 minutes introducing him to each animal, explaining their names and personalities, as if they were family members. "This is Thunder," Clint told Tommy, holding him carefully as the boy pet the horse's nose. "He's been in lots of movies, and he's very gentle with children." "Can I ride Thunder?" Tommy asked. "Well, let's see what your mama says when we find her," Clint replied with a smile. 45 minutes after Tommy had first appeared on set, local authorities arrived with Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, who had been frantically searching the desert for their missing son. "When I saw Tommy sitting in Clint Eastwood's director's chair, safe and actually smiling, I started crying from relief," Maria remembered. "But what happened next was something I'll never forget. Instead of simply returning Tommy to his parents and resuming filming, Clint made an offer that shocked everyone present. "Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez," Clint said, still holding Tommy. "Tommy has been my directing assistant this morning, and he's done such good work that I'd like to offer him a job." The parents looked confused until Clint continued. "If it's all right with you, I'd like Tommy to stay on set for the rest of the day as my official assistant. He can watch us film, have lunch with the cast and crew, and learn about making movies." "Mr. Eastwood," Carlos Rodriguez said, "we couldn't impose on your production." "You're not imposing. Tommy has been the best assistant I've had all week. Besides, it's not every day a boy gets to see real cowboys at work." What Clint did next would amaze the Rodriguez family even more. "And Tommy," Clint said, looking directly at the boy, "if you stay with us today, I promise you can ride Thunder with me before we're finished filming." Tommy's face lit up with joy, and his parents, overwhelmed by Clint's kindness, agreed to let their son spend the day on set. For the rest of that day, Tommy Rodriguez became the most important person on the Unforgiven production. Clint made sure Tommy had a special chair next to his director's chair, included him in discussions about camera angles and scene planning, and introduced him to every cast and crew member as my assistant director. "Tommy took his job very seriously," recalled cinematographer Jack Green. "He would watch everything intently and ask Clint questions about why we did things certain ways. Clint answered every question as if Tommy were a film school student. During lunch, Tommy sat at Clint's table with the main cast, treated like visiting royalty by actors who had witnessed their director's incredible compassion that morning. Watching Clint with Tommy reminded all of us why we respected him so much," observed actor Richard Harris. "He had shown that being a leader means taking care of people, especially when they're vulnerable." But the most magical moment came late in the afternoon, when Clint fulfilled his promise about letting Tommy ride Thunder. With Tommy's parents watching and the entire crew gathered around, Clint carefully lifted the boy onto Thunder's saddle and climbed up behind him. "Hold on tight, partner," Clint said, as they rode slowly around the set. "You're now officially a cowboy." The sight of Hollywood's toughest actor giving a gentle horseback ride to a 4-year-old boy brought tears to the eyes of crew members who had worked with Clint for years. "It was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen," recalled script supervisor Carla Corwin. "This legendary tough guy, being so tender with a little boy who had needed protection, and found it from exactly the right person." When filming wrapped that evening, Clint had one more surprise for Tommy. He presented the boy with an official Unforgiven crew jacket, sized perfectly for a 4-year-old, with assistant director embroidered on the back. "Tommy," Clint said, kneeling down to the boy's level one more time, "you did such good work today that you've earned a place on the crew. This jacket proves you're part of the Unforgiven family forever." The impact of that day extended far beyond just one child's experience. The story of how Clint Eastwood had stopped a major production to care for a lost child spread throughout the film industry, becoming an inspiration for how stars should treat the people around them. The Tommy Rodriguez story became legendary in Hollywood, explained entertainment journalist Nikki Finke. It showed that real star power means using your influence to take care of people who need it. More importantly, the experience profoundly influenced Tommy's life and dreams. Inspired by his day on the Unforgiven set, Tommy developed a passion for filmmaking that led him to study cinema in college and eventually become a successful director himself. That day with Clint Eastwood changed the entire direction of my life, Tommy reflected years later. He showed me that movies are made by people who care about each other, and that the most important part of any production is making sure everyone feels valued and protected. In 2008, 17 years after his day as Clint's assistant director, Tommy Rodriguez directed his first feature film, a Western that he dedicated to Clint Eastwood, who taught me that being tough means being kind to people who need kindness. When Clint heard about Tommy's directorial debut, he sent a congratulatory note that read, "To my former assistant director, I always knew you had what it takes to be behind the camera. The industry is lucky to have you." The Unforgiven crew jacket Tommy received that day still hangs in his office, a reminder of the moment when a legendary tough guy proved that real strength means stopping everything to help someone who needs help. But perhaps the most lasting impact was on the Rodriguez family's understanding of what true character looks like. Clint Eastwood could have sent an assistant to find Tommy's parents and continued filming his expensive scene, Carlos Rodriguez observed years later. Instead, he chose to personally make sure our son felt safe, valued, and cared for. That day taught our whole family that the most important people are often the ones who take time for children, especially when those children are scared and alone. August 12, 1991. A 4-year-old boy got lost in the desert and wandered onto a movie set where he had every reason to be frightened and overwhelmed. Instead, he found safety, kindness, and inspiration from someone who understood that protecting children is more important than protecting production schedules. Tommy Rodriguez learned that day that there are adults in the world who will stop everything to make sure a scared child feels safe, and everyone on the Unforgiven set learned what real leadership looks like when someone vulnerable needs protection. It looks like Clint Eastwood kneeling down to a child's eye level and saying, "I'm going to help you find your mama." It sounds like a tough guy explaining filmmaking to a 4-year-old, as if teaching him was the most important job in the world. It feels like being lifted onto a horse by someone strong enough to carry you and gentle enough to make sure you're not afraid. Some people think being tough means never showing softness. Others understand that being tough means being soft enough for children who need softness. Clint Eastwood understood the difference, and he showed that understanding to Tommy Rodriguez on a day when understanding made all the difference. Between being lost and being found, between being scared and being safe, between having a bad day and having the best day of your life. Tommy Rodriguez had the best day of his young life because Clint Eastwood decided that making a movie was less important than making sure a child was okay. That's what real tough guys do. They stop everything. For someone who needs everything stopped, especially when that someone is small and scared and lost. Because real tough guys understand that being lost is the worst feeling in the world, and being found by someone who cares is the best feeling in the world. Tommy Rodriguez felt both feelings on August 12, 1991. Lost in the desert, found by a legend, who proved that legends aren't just tough on screen, they're tough enough to be gentle when gentleness is what's needed most, by someone who needs it most, like a 4-year-old boy named Tommy, who learned that day that cowboys don't just exist in movies, they exist in real life too. Sometimes, when you're lucky enough to get lost, in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time, when exactly the right person is there, to make sure you're not lost anymore, ever again, because once you've been found by someone like Clint Eastwood, you understand that you'll never really be lost again. You'll always remember that there are people in the world strong enough to stop everything, for someone small enough to need everything stopped. That's what Tommy Rodriguez learned on the day he got lost and found something better than he was looking for. A hero who taught him what heroes really do. They help when help is needed most, by people who need it most, like scared children who just want to find their mamas and end up finding something even better. Someone who makes sure they find their mamas and feel safe while they're looking. That's what Clint Eastwood did on August 12, 1991, when he stopped being a movie star and started being what Tommy Rodriguez needed him to be, a protector, a teacher, a friend, and for one magical day, the best assistant director a little boy could ever ask for, who taught him that the most important direction anyone can give is "You're safe now. I'll help you. Everything's going to be okay," because sometimes that's all the direction anyone needs, to understand that they're not lost anymore. They're found by exactly the right person, at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way, like Tommy Rodriguez was found by Clint Eastwood, who stopped filming, so Tommy could start believing that there are heroes in the world who look just like cowboys and act just like the best people you could ever hope to meet when you're 4 years old, and scared, and lost, and lucky enough to wander onto the set where a legend is filming, who understands that some things are more important than filming, like little boys who need to be found and kept safe and treated like the most important people in the world until their mamas come, and even after. Because that's what legends do. They make sure the little people feel big when they need to feel big most, like Tommy Rodriguez felt on the day Clint Eastwood made him assistant director, of his own safety, his own happiness, his own understanding that the world has good people in it, who will stop everything for someone who needs everything stopped, like Tommy Rodriguez did on August 12, 1991, when he got lost and found a hero who taught him what heroes do. They help, always, especially when the cameras are rolling and everyone is watching, and there are more important things to do than whatever everyone came to watch, like making sure a little boy isn't lost anymore. That's the most important thing anyone can ever do, according to Clint Eastwood, who proved it on the day he stopped filming, so Tommy Rodriguez could start living the story he would tell for the rest of his life about the day a cowboy saved him from being lost forever.